Good evening, YouTube. Tired Metalhead Weatherman here. Hopefully, you guys are doing well. Tropics have really picked up, not just in the Pacific, where we just had Hilary go through. We also now have to look at the Atlantic, where we have 5 systems ongoing right here: tropical depressions, tropical storms, and new areas of interest as well. Right now, there isn't anything super crazy going on at the moment, but that is likely to change as we have 2 areas of interest right here. One even in the Gulf of Mexico, Tropical Depression 9, which was named earlier today. We're looking towards the Texas coast here in particular, where we're expecting this one to actually make its way to tropical storm status. The next name, I should say, is going to be Harold. This is going to be towards the southern part of Texas and getting even into Mexico at this point here. So this is going to definitely bring increased shower and thunderstorm activity over here. Looks like this could be a little bit slower of a mover than what we were seeing with Hilary out west. Right now, we currently have winds at about 18 miles an or movement at 18 miles an hour, sustained winds at 35 miles an hour. I'm not expecting this to become a super strong storm. It's going to be a limited amount of time for it to really get itself together before it makes landfall. So, like I said, main threat will definitely be flooding. Could be some storm surge, albeit on a little bit more of a minimal level. And then, of course, with it going over land, it's going to fizzle out pretty quickly. But a couple other areas of interest, of course, here is Tropical Storm Franklin. Franklin could have some significant impacts in regards to rainfall over towards Hispaniola here. So basically, that could be Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, and Haiti as well. But as it stands right now, this is looking towards Puerto Rico. This looks like we're going to be seeing mainly about 2 to 4 inches max right now. This could change, of course, depending on how the storm strengthens. As of right now, we're not expecting this to reach hurricane status by the time it makes its first landfall. But as it heads out to sea, it could re-strengthen later this weekend, all the way up to hurricane status here. So that being said, Harold and Franklin are going to be the points of interest. And if you're wondering, if you were watching the stream the other day, or actually yesterday, wasn't there a Hilary? Not Hilary, but there was obviously a Hilary. But wasn't there a Emily? This actually what was Emily right here. This right here was Emily. And it's dissipated now, but there actually, interestingly enough, is a 20% chance of it reforming within the next several days. It's a low chance, but it's a chance nonetheless. So this could reemerge. I still don't think it would be a threat to land. This would mainly be just a fish storm, just going to be out at sea, may increase the waves, cause some pretty inclement weather for anyone that's far out into the Atlantic at this point. Definitely would hope that no aircraft would fly over this area if this redevelops. As far as tropical now depression, Gert, is concerned, what an interesting name. It's not expected to last. It actually has done well just to even make it to tropical storm status. We aren't even given this much of a chance here, really, as far as it surviving. By early afternoon tomorrow here, from the looks of it, that's going to be probably it for this storm here. It's already on the post-tropical end of things at this point, so we're probably going to be done with this pretty soon. I still would keep an eye on this just in case this takes a sudden change here, especially as it goes towards the Bahamas here. If it holds up well enough, it could reform. You always have to watch out for those kinds of things. I've seen it happen plenty of times long before I even started this channel, so definitely something to keep an eye on, but I'm not too convinced that that's going to be the case here. Last but not least, over the Atlantic, we do have another point of interest over here that's towards the west coast of Africa. Going to be heading out into the Atlantic here around the main development region. Has a 70% chance of developing within the next week here. Expecting this to probably go out to sea as well, but we do need to keep an extra close eye on this. These storms that develop in what's called the main development region, which is right through here, this corridor, always have to be watched closely because any sudden change within the upper level winds can have this heading straight towards the Bahamas, straight towards Cuba, Hispaniola, Puerto Rico, and others, and maybe even into the Gulf. Worst case scenario right now is if a sizable storm can get into the Gulf of Mexico waters here and kind of meander for a little bit, that could cause some serious problems. Thankfully, with the way the upper level wind pattern is, we haven't had that occur. Most storms that even try to get close have been pretty much sheared apart long before they could even get their act together. But we are in the peak of hurricane season, and we seem to be in a pattern that's pretty favorable for a couple of storms to maybe make their way into the Gulf. Not saying that it will happen, but the possibility does exist. That being said here, let's go ahead and look at the wind pattern or the wind shear. This has been our saving grace so far. And so far, if you're looking at all these red areas, that's where the wind shear is strongest. As we go forward here, we still see pretty intense wind shear over particular areas, especially the main development region. But there is a corridor that started to develop where the wind shear is lightened up a bit. So that's going to have to be watched very closely. Then as we head towards the end of the month here, and I've talked about it a couple of times, I do notice a corridor right here towards the Bahamas, towards the Caribbean, where we're starting to see a decrease in the amount of wind shear. Those water temperatures still being warm there, that could lead to some trouble if the system gets there. Haven't seen any indicators of that happening yet, thankfully. As we're looking at the ensembles, you see a point of low pressure and a little bit of spin like what you would see here. Then I would be a little bit more concerned, but right now I haven't seen anything. Of course, this is the latest model run here, and I haven't seen anything that's trekking in that direction right now. Wind shear does seem to weaken a little bit. So there's also a fruit fly in my room, deck on it. I don't know how it got in here, but okay. Anyway, as far as the ensemble models are concerned on both the GFS ensemble and the EPS ensembles here, wind shear lightens up, but so far there's no solution currently for a storm system to develop, and we're looking 360 to 384 hours out at this point. So there's some good news to be had there at the moment. Of course, with us looking this far out, we know that things can change at the drop of a dime. And of course, we're only looking at a handful of models. I could probably look at about 10 different models here, but it would take literally over an hour to make a video about that. But another good way to look at potential areas of low pressure, this is the ensemble member pressure centers. So this looks at both high and low pressure. Low pressures are the numbers in the red. The more tightly you see the contours or isobars around there, the greater the chance of seeing a low pressure or high pressure system develop. This is a high pressure system, for example. And if you start to see multiple isobars there, that's usually a good indicator of a tropical system here, because of course we're over the water right now. This is Franklin right here. I think this is one of our tropical waves that we've been watching. And then after that, we do see pieces of energy coming off of the West African coast here. We even do see an indicator of maybe one system here in the Gulf, according to the ensemble here. Doesn't look like it gets very strong at the moment, but like I said, the wild card factor is definitely going to be the amount of wind shear and also the temperatures over the Gulf, which has basically been like jet fuel pretty much. So there are still plenty to watch right now, even though as of right now things look like they're okay. So just make sure we're on our toes here. And then of course, as far as the main development region is concerned, it's living up to its name pretty much. August, September, of course, this is the beginning of the peak season, so it's no surprises there. It's pretty much a similar deal with the ensemble here for the EPS. We see Franklin right here. We see a tropical wave that we've been looking at over here off the West African coast. And one good thing is, as these storms strengthen, they're going to get caught in this high pressure area here on the flank of it, and that's what's going to end up kicking a lot of these out to sea. But notice we don't have that same thing going on as we're looking over towards the Gulf, and that's where I'm increasingly concerned. there is an area of high pressure over the U.S., which could potentially be the reason why we're seeing what's likely to become Harold get steered inward towards the Texas coast here. Like I said, it hasn't, the wind shear didn't clear up enough for this to really strengthen in time, which is a good thing. But if any storms were to form after that and the pattern holds as is, we could be talking a different story here. So if you're along the Gulf Coast, especially, this isn't necessarily a warning, but this is your heads up right here. This is your wake up call. Hey, we're in the middle of hurricane season. Let's make sure that we're ready in case something does form and we happen to be in the cone. So now that we've looked at the ensembles for the Atlantic, go ahead and take a look at the Pacific region, especially the Eastern Pacific. There actually is an area over towards Mexico, towards West Mexico, where there is a 40% chance of development within the next week. Where this goes is still unknown at this time. Will it have a similar track to what Hilary had? Kind of hard to say at the moment. We are not a fear-mongering channel. We do not make clickbait videos. So you get the truth here, or as much of the truth as I can get, because the weather loves to change. But as time goes on, the wind shear that's been over the Baja and Southern California, that was inhibiting storm development there, of course, returns in that region. So from the looks of it, I would say I wouldn't expect too much from this right now. Also, cooler waters also are going to be an inhibitor as far as tropical development is concerned. A ridge tries to develop here too from the looks of it, which will keep steering these storms out to sea. So as of right now, I wouldn't expect anything to be of much concern that does develop. Maybe a little bit of increased surf off the west coast of Mexico, maybe even towards the Baja. But as far as Southern California, it does not look like we're going to be seeing a new event occurring anytime soon here. So there's some good news to be had there. Same thing can be shown on the EPS here. Not really a whole lot going on here. We're going to rewind this back. But there is an area of low pressure that looks a little bit interesting here. It's interesting to see that there's a different run playing out, but I still also see that same area of wind shear here too. So a little bit of a question mark there. I don't expect that to be anything of a tropical entity right now, but we'll keep an eye on that. But towards the end of this ensemble run, seeing that ridge come into play here, while the wind shear is weaker towards this region, it's just going to kick a lot. That ridge is just going to kick a lot of these storms out to sea here and away from land. So as far as the ensemble members are concerned, as we know, towards the Gulf, a lot more activity. Towards southern Mexico, southwestern Mexico, plenty of action here. And for a time, some of these storm systems do try to work their way a little bit further up towards the north and west here. But ultimately, once that ridge really starts to take over, these storms just continually will get kicked out to sea without any real concern here. And then it's pretty much going to be the same thing with the European ensemble here. Pretty much the plots look exactly the same. There's no real runs that really indicate anything developing and heading towards land at this time. So anyone that's looking at this from Southern California, you're good. It's not going to be any major hurricanes as of right now. It was a very rare instance that we had this weekend, but it looks like you're in the good for right now. So that being said, last thing we'll go ahead and take a look at is the sea surface temperatures. We're going to probably put more emphasis on the Atlantic at this time now, since it looks like the threat for the Pacific at the moment is over. So here's a look at our sea surface temperatures right now. One indicator that I think things will be all right here is towards Southern California. These little areas over here towards the blue, we're about 1 degree or 2 Celsius below the typical anomaly here. So this is also going to help inhibit development. But In contrast, if you look towards the Gulf of Mexico, we're seeing about 2 to even 3 degrees Celsius above average. And towards the main development region, waters are pretty hot too. We're looking at maybe even 3 to 4 degrees Celsius above, and pretty much throughout the entire Atlantic basin here, all the way up and even into the northern Atlantic, waters are well above average here. So concerns are pretty high. So like I said, any tropical system that developed could strengthen very rapidly here. So you have to watch every storm at this point, whether you're in the Gulf Coast, the eastern seaboard on the U.S., or in the Caribbean planning a vacation towards the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico, and maybe even some parts of South America. Just keep an eye on the tropics, man, because we could be in for a couple surprises here. Not trying to scare anyone, but definitely want you to be prepared. But that being said here, hope you found this video useful. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you're smashing that like button, decimating that subscribe button, hitting that share button as well. A lot of exciting stuff coming up for the channel. Hopefully you can tag along for that. Hopefully you stick around. But probably could expect more streams coming in regards to the tropics as well as severe weather, because the pattern will probably be changing soon. Just like with this heat dome and just like with Hilary, things don't always last. That being said, hope you guys have a good night. I'll see you in the morning. This has been Tyler, Metalhead Weatherman. Take care. You guys have a good night.